Hello Booktube. Today I'm going to be giving you my review of Money Train by Michael Stewart, which I read as part of June on the Range, which is an event created by Michael K. Vaughan, where you're encouraged to read all things Western during the course of the month of June. The story follows a Texan called Danny Spencer, who spent all his life in Texas and decides he wants to see the ocean, and so he decides to travel to California to see it. During his travels, he stops at the town of Gila Creek in Arizona, where he is mistaken by the townsfolk for a notorious outlaw called Zeke Toland. This begins a series of events that sees Spence having to deal with the local crime family, the Cole Gang, a Mexican outlaw called Hernando Ortiz, and he's some monstrous giant of a henchman called Branco, as well as going up against Zeke Tolan himself. I'm not going to give any more details on the plot because I don't want to spoil it, because I really enjoyed this. With this being the fourth Western I've read so far for June on the Range, this has got to be the best. The plot had so many twists and turns, many of which I didn't see coming. Danny Spence is put into numerous situations he's never been in before. His life before he sort of set out on this journey to go to see the Pacific, he was working as a cow herder, so cattle herder, sorry, and he'd never shot a man before in his life. And during the course of this, he has to do that quite a number of times. There's shootouts, there's a bank robbery, train robbery. There's a sort of he has to go at one point. He has to go undercover as Zeke Toland, and there's various sort of characters who turn out to be somewhat different from what they are, and the action, it's actually very action packed, and that almost begins from pretty much the first chapter, and it doesn't stop until the end. There's a couple of great villains in here. Mark Cole, who's head of the Cole Gang, which effectively consists of her sons and a couple of hangers-on, and she is a real sort of hard, cruel villain and works really well. There's Hernando Ortiz and his henchmen are really good. His henchman, particularly, sort of this monstrous giant who throttles people to death with his bare hands. There's the bank robbery scene is really well done, and this is somewhat interesting in the fact that as a Western, it's actually set not during the sort of the traditional time of the Western, which is between sort of the Mexican-American War and the 1890s. This is set during the Mexican Revolution, which took place from 1912 1912 until 1918, I think, about that time. And I think this is set early on because Pancho Villa is referenced, and some of his men appear in this. In fact, they are Pancho Villa's men, I think, given by going off one of the scenes near the end of the book. I highly recommend you get this if you can. It's a really good Western. It was so good that I'm recording this now. It's just gone 5:45 in the afternoon. I started reading this at 3 o'clock this afternoon, and once I started, I didn't want to stop. It was one of the really good, sort of fast-moving, not hurried in any way, really draws you along, and it's a really great read. I highly recommend it for anybody who wants a really good Western, especially one set around the time of the Mexican Revolution. I'd say those set around the time of the Mexican Revolution, it's not heavily touched on, though it gets touched on with elements within the plot and sort of some of the dialogue of the characters. So you don't need to know much about the Mexican Revolution at all about it. So I wouldn't worry if you're not too hot on the Mexican Revolution, but nevertheless, I really do recommend people, if you want a good Western, buy this, and you won't regret it. And with that, I'll say goodbye, Booktube, and I will see you probably tomorrow.